Hey everybody, welcome back to the Fantasy Football Endgame. If you haven't hit subscribe, go ahead and do that now. And also, join our Discord server where we talk fantasy football all season and off season long. Had a lot of discussions on draft strategy. Of course, now it's going to be start sit, trades, dynasty, you name it, we cover it. And of course, join us every Sunday morning now going forward for our live show 2 hours before kickoff of the first game. That'll be Sunday morning at 11 Eastern. So we're going to answer as many questions as possible. But first, let's talk about quarterbacks and tight ends. That's what you're here for. We're going to give you our quarterback that we feel is a must start and a must sit. Same thing for tight ends. If there's somebody we don't get to, hit us up with a comment here on this channel. All right, so let's get started, Chris. Who's a quarterback you're feeling in week one might have a good chance to break out?
You know, it's my boy, Ryan Fitzpatrick of my football team. Say whatever you want to say about this guy as a real life quarterback. He's a great fantasy quarterback, and he's really a great fantasy quarterback in the right matchups. And I think this is going to be one of those matchups. I think, they're playing against the Chargers. I know the Chargers have a pretty good defense, but this is probably going to be a game featuring a lot of points, a high over under. And we've seen in games where he has to throw the ball 35 plus times. That's when he puts up his big fantasy point week. So I think this week, if you waited on QB or if you're in like some kind of super flex 2 QB league, I think he's a very high upside, kind of just outside the top 12 quarterbacks this week for me. But if you waited on QB, you're looking for a QB off of waivers, I think Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to be a great start this week, going over 20 plus for sure in 4-point touchdown league. So feeling good about my boy Fitzmagic in week one.
All right, well, we'll see how that transition from the Dolphins goes, but he's definitely got some weapons there to work with. Now, this might seem a little too obvious. If you caught our running back start sit and our wide receiver start sit, you notice we've been a little bit on the Jaguars bandwagon here because they're playing the Texans. I'm going to extend that to quarterback too, Trevor Lawrence. And interestingly enough, that Trevor Lawrence, despite being the number one overall pick, he wasn't drafted as a fantasy starter in a lot of leagues. He kind of right outside that range, maybe 12, 13, 14. But a lot of people hesitant to go with a rookie as a starter. Not sure why. We had a couple rookies who did pretty well last year, including Justin Herbert, who went undrafted in a lot of fantasy leagues. Well, Trevor Lawrence is this supposedly generational talent. This guy who's the number one pick. He's the starter from day one. And he's got a decent offense to work with. Going against probably the worst defense in the league, you have to roll him out there week one. If you drafted him as your backup, well, I don't know who you got ahead of him, but I don't think there's a lot of quarterbacks that are going to outscore Trevor Lawrence this week. So I'm trusting him from the jump. All right, who are we not trusting, Chris? Give me a quarterback you don't like in week one.
Well, you went with a rookie that you liked. I'm going with a second-year guy that I don't like this week, and that's Joe Burrow. Again, coming off that major injury last year. I know he's got the weapons. Everybody's going to say he's got T. Higgins, he's got Jamar Chase, he's got Tyler Boyd. I love his weapons. What I don't love is the fact that offensive line looks just as bad as it did last year, right? We saw that in preseason. That guy had no time to throw, pressure all around him. We're going to see more of that this week going against the Minnesota Vikings, who have an above average defense. They can get pressure on the quarterback. They're going to get pressure on Burrow. And again, coming off the injury, first real game of the season since that injury, you got to wonder what is he going to be like when he's under center? What is his confidence going to be like, right? I'm just not willing to trust him in week one. I do think Joe Burrow is going to have a fine season. I think he's going to be, a top 15, maybe even a top 20 quarterback this year. I'm just not willing to trust him in week one against that Vikings defense coming off that injury.
Yeah, I really wish they would have drafted Sewell instead of Chase. That would have made things a lot better for Burrow, honestly, but it is what it is. Now, a lot of people excited about Jameis Winston getting the starting job in New Orleans. I get it, former number one pick also, and this is somebody who has the talent, but also questionable decision-making. We'll see how things go. He looked sharp in the preseason, but here's the problem. Going against, again, probably underrated defense in the Packers, especially their pass defense, is improving. And let's not forget, too, something that just kind of developed recently, the fact this was supposed to be a home game for the Saints. It's not anymore because the hurricane, it's getting moved. I believe they're playing in Florida. It's going to be a little less cozy. Instead of the dome, they're playing outdoors. So it's going to be something to watch because no home field advantage. Winston in his first start with the Saints We'll see how he does, but there's no Michael Thomas either, right? His number one receiver is Marcus Callaway, who, again, I'm a fan of, but he's no Michael Thomas. His number two receiver is Traquan Smith, right? Adam Troutman's hurt. This is not the Saints offense that we remember from before. So don't get too hyped up on Winston. He might be okay as a QB2 going forward, but week one, I just don't see big numbers from him. All right, so let's get to the tight ends now. Let's start with the positive. Who's a must start for you in week one?
Well, I mean, obviously outside of the top 10 or 12 tight ends that you drafted to start, I'm going with Jonnu Smith of the New England Patriots. I think, first of all, it's a great matchup this week for the Patriots tight ends. I know Hunter Henry is there too, but the reason why I like Jonnu Smith more this week is Hunter Henry's been banged up the last few weeks. He hasn't really gotten as many reps in this offense and with Mac Jones as Jonnu Smith has, right? So I think Jonnu Smith is going to be the guy, at least in week one and maybe going forward, but definitely here in week one. Like I said, it's a great matchup for tight ends for New England. And of course, Mac Jones helps, right? Because you got to think Mac Jones, he's going to probably target the tight ends more of like the slot intermediate guys. I know, he doesn't have a noodle arm like a lot of people say. He threw the ball pretty well, but he's not a guy who's going to take tons of shots down the field. He's not like a Jameis Winston or a Ryan Fitzpatrick who's just going to chuck it down the field and hope for the best. More of a precision, accurate kind of guy. And I think that's going to really help Jonnu Smith this year. So if you weren't happy with the tight end you drafted or they have a tough matchup, go look on your waiver wire, see if Jonnu Smith is there, and start him this week.
Yeah, it's interesting. They got both Smith and Hunter Henry. Don't know really who's the main guy there, who's the TE1, but I do think Smith seems to have the edge so far based on what we've seen in preseason. So within the same division, I'm going deeper here. I say must start. Obviously, it depends who you have at tight end. If you're looking, or you're streaming tight ends, that means you don't have one of those top 5 guys. Well, I'm going to take a chance on a guy who now all of a sudden is the starting tight end for the Jets. That's Tyler Kroft. And this is somebody who already had earned that job before they traded Chris Herndon. He had beaten out Herndon. Herndon continues to disappoint. So now that he's officially off the roster, it's Kroft's job alone. You have to realize they have a rookie quarterback. Rookie quarterbacks, a lot of times, like to play it safe. They'll go to their kind of safety blankets here, the slot receiver, the tight end. Well, their slot receiver is Jamison Crowder, and he has COVID, and he might not play in week one. And Elijah Moore could be a great play, but again, he's been hurt throughout the preseason. Don't know how many snaps he's going to take in week one. I think Kroft is really sneaky play here because he could get more targets than people expect. All right, so that's a guy I'm definitely watching closely. And if you play the streaming game based on matchups, this is a good one. Not so good is the guy you're about to tell us. Who are you not starting at tight end?
Oh, boy. Well, I'm ready for the comments and the hate and the flames because I'm going to tell you, Kyle Pitts is going to break your heart in week one. And I get it. You can't not start Kyle Pitts because you spent a 4th or a 5th or a 6th round draft pick on him and you can't bench him now. But I'm just don't see how it's going to pan out for Kyle Pitts in week one. I mean, you look at Philadelphia and you think, oh, that's a great matchup. Well, it is if you're a wide receiver or a running back, but not for tight ends. Philadelphia has actually been very good recently against tight ends. And then you probably are going to tell me, well, Kyle Pitts isn't a tight end. They're going to use him as a wide receiver. I need to see that first because we didn't see that in preseason. He lined up as a tight end in preseason. He didn't line up as a wide receiver. Now, maybe they'll have some packages for him to play wide receiver, sure, but he's probably going to predominantly play tight end, which means he's going to get the worst matchup against Philadelphia. And, he's a rookie making his first NFL start. So look, I get it. You can't not start Kyle Pitts because you drafted him so early. Just temper expectations. Be ready for heartbreak this week because I think it's going to happen.
I've been banging that drum all off season saying, Pitts, great dynasty pick, great future. It just might not happen right away. He's 20 years old and just learning the league. So I think it might take a little bit of time, believe it or not. And I'm going to say no to Tyler Higbee. I know people think he was kind of a nice value pick late at tight end. It could be, but this is not a good matchup. Chicago, one of the stingiest against the tight end last year, and I think that will continue this season. They still have a pretty solid, maybe a little underrated defense. And, the Rams have plenty of options. They don't need to lean on the tight end. Matt Stafford, never a guy who's necessarily peppered the tight end with targets. But remember, they still have Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. They drafted Tutu Atwell. They have Van Jefferson. They have plenty of options where they don't need to rely on the tight end in Higbee. It's just so up and down, hard to predict his usage. But again, I just don't feel like it's going to be a high enough ceiling for him. I'd rather take a chance on somebody else with a better matchup. All right, quarterbacks and tight ends. Love them or not, you got to start them. So those are the guys that we're looking at. If you have a question, hit us up with a comment right here in this channel. We'll try to answer all of your questions, including Sunday morning for our live show. Don't miss it, 11 a.m. Eastern. And of course, check out our Discord. Link is in the description below. All right, good luck in week 1.